Looks good.
So I was just going to say there's a lot going on with the education field too, with the legislation right now going on.
Shane, we can't hear you.
Okay, there we go. I'm telling you, technology is not my friend. I'm sorry. So yes, there is a lot going on education. They are still trying to perfect the distributive fund and the education funding formula. There's a couple of bills that would put civics education back in the classroom. Well, they didn't really take it out, but they reduced it down to a half credit at the high school level. And then there was the bill that set the building on fire yesterday about the hybrid model where half of the school board would be appointed and the other half would be elected. So yeah, education, well, education's always a big thing. As a food bank, we don't always step into the education bills unless it has something specific to do with child nutrition. But that doesn't mean that we wouldn't be willing to support other people's work on that stuff. And it just so happens that I've known Natha Anderson for almost her entire life. So anyway, can you see my Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, good. So at least that much is going right. So this is just like a short list of some of the bills that that we have been working on this session. And I have to say that trying to do this remotely has made it very difficult to engage on every single bill. And the worst part of it is that they're still doing bill introductions. So the deadline was supposed to be March 15th for bill introductions. They have pretty much suspended that rule. I am unclear how long bill introductions are actually going to be going on, but I don't want to put together a definitive list of bills we're tracking until I know all of the bills have been introduced. So this is sort of the high level version of some of the bills that we have been working on. Although I don't know why it says real estate commission on there, because that's not exactly what SB 280 does. But anyway, sometimes the Legislative Council Bureau doesn't always get the language right. So does anybody have any questions specifically about any of the bills that's going on at the legislature, or anything that you may have heard about what's happening at the legislature this session that I might be able to answer? Just because it's not on my list doesn't necessarily mean that we haven't weighed in some other way. These are ones that we're just actively working on.
Looks like we have a question from Nancy. I don't know if you can see it, Shane. Are there bills specifically sponsored by the food bank?
There are two bills that are sponsored by the food bank this session. One of them is AB 138. That bill, we tried to do this back in 2017 and Governor Sandoval vetoed the bill. But what this does is allows people with a substance abuse felony conviction. This will allow them to get access to SNAP and TANF, because under the Welfare Reform Act of 1996, at the federal level, way back in the day, Senator Graham put in an amendment that basically prohibited people from having with a substance abuse felony conviction from accessing the program unless they could prove that they went through a rehab program. And in order, under the current law, in order to maintain access to that, you have to show a certificate of completion. And 20 years into it, we've learned that nobody keeps track of those certificates of completion. And we've also learned that most rehabilitation clinics have a life year of about 5 years before they go out of business, or they merge with other ones. So that's something that we're pretty passionate about. The other bill, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And this is good to know, because I do work for a nonprofit drug and rehab facility as a therapist. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, when the only way for them to get access right now is by completing my program. They would have to complete the program first to get access if they had a felony drug charge on their record, correct?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
So this would waive the requirement of having to complete your program, not that we're trying to take business away from you.
No.
So yeah, so we're just trying to make it so because, and also, you know, it's kind of funny because this also prohibits access to TANF, but by borrowing them access to TANF, they're also borrowing access to the very tools that they need in order to, you know, rebuild their life. So it's kind of a ridiculous thing. The other bill that we're sponsoring this session just came out this week. It is SB 370. I just this morning got done writing an amendment. So if you were to take a look at the language of that bill, it's been completely rewritten. But what it does is creates a state food purchase program, kind of like what TFAP is, but only on a state level using Nevada produced products. And we're really excited about this bill because it gives an opportunity for Nevada agriculture and the food banks to finally be able to connect, I hope, on a sustainable way. The program would be administered through the Nevada Department of Agriculture. So they would negotiate the contracts to purchase the food, and then the food would come to the state's two food banks, and then we would then pass that food along to our partner agencies. So the hearing for that bill is tentatively scheduled for next Tuesday.
Canceled the breakout room, so we were going to be right back in it. Very apologetic. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. Okay.
Okay, honestly, I don't even know what to say. I think that Leah is probably ready to jump out a window right now. So anyway, yeah, so those are the two bills. Hopefully everybody caught that before we were unceremoniously canceled. God, this is beginning to feel like sweeps week. Anyway, before we were unceremoniously canceled, hopefully everybody sort of caught the information on the two bills that we're doing. Do you have any other questions about what's happening at the legislature? This is a really weird session. It's really hard to communicate with other lobbyists and with the legislators directly through Zoom and trying to schedule meetings. You know, when you're in the building, you can grab them in the hallway, and now the time has to be much more structured. And so the number of meetings that somebody can actually do in a day is severely limited. So this has been a really tough go at trying to make sure that the food bank is able to weigh in on all of the issues that we want to weigh in. And Nancy wrote a question. Yes, actually, Nancy, yes, we can. So Nancy Wong's question was, can we partner? Can we as partners help to advocate for these bills? Absolutely, yes. I would love it if you would actually be willing to partner or to help me advocate for AB 138 and SB 370. And if you're interested in doing that, then you can just send me an email or call me, and I will send you all of the information that we have now. So the drug felon bill is supposed to go to the floor of the assembly to be voted out and over to the Senate sometime late this week, which I guess basically is tomorrow because I don't think there's floor on Friday, or early next week. So there is definitely an opportunity to testify for the drug felon bill on the Senate side. Well, it has to happen before the end of April. And then I can give you the details on SB 370, and when that goes to, has its first hearing, I'll ask Jenny to send out the details as soon as I get the hearing information, because right now, tentatively I'm scheduled for next Tuesday, but I don't have that in writing. It's not on the agenda yet. So as soon as it is, so you could absolutely email your, you know what, with the legislature, the comment on the bill, and I will ask Jenny to send out, I'll write an email and I'll have send it out to everybody, but there's actually a comment on a bill poll thing that's in the legislature, and that is way more effective than actually emailing individual members. At the federal level, we always want people to write your congressman. At the state level, we want you to fill out this contact or to voice support for a bill, because the way that the legislature works, contacting one member may not be enough time for that message to get either to the bill sponsor or to the committee. And this is just more effective because then all members of the legislature can see who supports what bills. So I will write something up and I will ask Jenny to send it out to you guys probably tomorrow that can tell you exactly how to participate in this thing. Yes, that is true. On the landlord tenant bill, that bill, I'm still waiting to see if it's going to get a final vote. But yeah, that was pretty easy to get people out to testify in support of the landlord tenant bill. So anyway, does anybody have any other questions about the Nevada legislature before I move over to what's going on in the Congress? If you have any questions at any point, please, feel free to ask me. And I'm going to try the whole share your screen thing again. Oh, wait, no, I can't. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, so as I said before, the Congress is going to do something kind of insane this year, starting in 2021, going into 2022, and they're going to write the Farm Bill or reauthorize the Farm Bill and reauthorize the child nutrition programs simultaneously. The Child Nutrition Act has not been reauthorized since President Obama was in the White House back in 2010, so it's in desperate need of an overhaul. The Farm Bill right now consists of a whole bunch of what we call marker bills. And so what is on my screen right now is just a list of the marker bills that have been introduced that will give the committees, the Senate Agriculture Committee and the House committees, an idea of what people are thinking in terms of what should be included into the Farm Bill. So a lot of it is pretty big policy change, but it doesn't necessarily impact Nevada specific. Making the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands eligible to participate in SNAP is going to be a huge game changer for the residents of the island and part of the Commonwealth. Clearly, we wouldn't necessarily notice it impacted that in Nevada, but it's important. The other one, HR 487, would expand the operation of state employment and training programs. This one actually is going to have a huge impact on Nevada. Nevada's training and employment and training opportunities are actually pretty weak. And in the I'm trying to remember if it was 2017. It was 2017 session of the legislature. We passed SB 323. It was SB 323 that enabled the state of Nevada to actually create a workfare program. So why this is important is that if you are an able-bodied adult from 18 to 49, you are required to have, work 20 hours a week or be in some kind of a qualified education program in order to maintain your SNAP benefits. If you're not in one, then you can only have SNAP benefits for 3 months for a rolling 3-month period every 3 years. So this bill would actually strengthen the employment and training opportunity, would give money to help the states strengthen their training and opportunity programs, and also require states to take certain actions to make sure that they can meet the intent of the law. There's another marker bill that's listed right after that, HR 753, that would actually repeal those work programs. So the reason why we've got both bills is that we are not sure if we can get the repeal of the able-bodied adult work requirements out of the Senate or not. So, I mean, we're going to try really hard, but it's hard to know. So we're going to sort of like make sure that we've got both bases covered. HR 1919 would make changes to allow more college students to participate in SNAP, because right now, depending upon what grants you get, I mean, it's really crazy how college students are treated with SNAP. But as it is right now, most college students who are going to a four-year university, getting college loans or in some kind of federal subsidies, are not allowed to have access to the SNAP program. And then HR 2809 would also sort of lift the 3-month time limit for ABODs. So, and then the last one, S313, would allow more options for people to redeem their SNAP benefits online. Because currently in Nevada, we have, I think, either Amazon or Walmart. And it really depends upon where you live in the country to be able to redeem those. So some places can use like Safeway or Albertsons, you know, and I know that like Whole Foods and Lucky's, and there's like 23 other national retailers or regional retailers that would like to have access to the online redemption program, because the nearest Walmart could be further away than, you know, like our local Smith's would be. So that is sort of like the idea of what's behind the Farm Bill, but ideally we want to get rid of the work requirements for ABODs and to improve access to SNAP for college students. And then the one thing that isn't listed here, because we actually don't have a bill for this yet, is to make the 15% increase that we got during the COVID relief acts that was just extended through the end of September. The 15% SNAP increase, we want to make that completely permanent. So going forward, that would not go away. And there's a couple of reasons why we want to do that. The biggest reason is that the cost of food since the beginning of the public health crisis has gone up more than the 15% increase that was granted. So taking that away is actually going to lose people's purchase power in the SNAP program. So we need to make sure that people actually don't fall behind after the public health crisis goes, or when the public health declaration is finally allowed to expire. We do not want people to then have less buying power for their SNAP benefit. And then also in the Farm Bill that isn't listed here, is that we would continue to add additional money to the TFAP program, so that the food banks would continue to be able to buy the product at the rate and the levels that we need in order to continue serving the number of clients that we're being able to serve. And then also we're asking to expand the catalog of products available through TFAP and also through the Senior Commodities Food Program, CSFP. So does anybody have any questions about that piece of it? Okay, so give me 1 second here. I need to pull up one more quick document about child nutrition. Okay, can you see my child nutrition screen? Okay, good. So this is where I think we're probably going to need a lot of help from our grassroots networks and all of our great partners at the congressional level. And that's trying to get everything that we're asking for in the child nutrition reauthorization. I do expect that this bill is going to come up first, which is why I'm doing it last in this presentation, so you'll remember it. Because this potentially could be a really hard lift. So I'm going to go through the asks for each one of the programs that are in there. And then if you have questions along the way, I can't see your chat, but please just speak up and let me know.
I can see the chat if they need to chat there also.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. So the big thing that the food banks and our partner agencies, which is all of you, operate is after school or the summer food service program. And so what we really need to do is to increase the reach and the benefit of the summer meals. And there's a couple of things that we can do to do that. The first one is to remove the congregate feeding requirement that would require the kids to eat the meal on site. And as you know, that means then that if like we serve at a park or an apartment complex or wherever it is, the space that is created for us to serve those meals, the kids have to sit there and eat the whole thing. Well, when it's 100 degrees out, especially in Las Vegas, that is just insane. So we would like to be able to remove that requirement and allow the kids to take those meals home and eat them. There's no reason to keep them in the park or in the community center or wherever they are. Unless it's a on-site program like Boys and Girls Club or, Reno City Parks and Recreation, there's no reason to keep them on site. The other thing we need to do is to improve the eligibility requirements so that more are able to be served. And so what the best way to do that is, as I recall, I think it has to be 60%, the neighborhood has to be 60% free and reduced lunch. So the neighborhoods are broken out by whatever schools that are in those neighborhoods and what the free and reduced lunch rate is for those schools in those neighborhoods. We want to reduce that down to 50%. And then we have to streamline the operations of summer food and the after school kids cafe after school meal programs so that they operate under the same reporting requirements, get the same reimbursement rates, because right now summer food is more than after school. It's kind of a mess. And then they have two different reporting reports that we have to do. We really just want to make it so that we can operate one program year round, regardless of whether we're serving meals after school, on school property, or during the summer, directly in the communities where the kids live. We want to build on the success of the pandemic EBT transfer and provide a summer EBT benefit to the students who are eligible for free and reduced price meals when the schools are closed. This is going to be huge for our rural partners or for a lot of our families that just can't, for whatever reason, don't have access to the summer food program. And there's a lot of neighborhoods in Reno where they just don't get access to summer food. Our sites are not everywhere. We try our best, but our sites just aren't everywhere. So there's a lot of kids that go without that. Let me just say that Nevada is in a process right now of putting in the PEBT plan for this academic year. And I think the goal was, and I need to follow up because I don't think the USDA has approved it, but I think the goal was to issue benefits twice this year. Once was supposed to happen at the end of the last semester, and then one at the end of the current spring semester. I'm unclear where those are, but I do know that Nevada is working on trying to get that approved with the USDA. And then the other issue is that the pandemic EBT program through the American Rescue Plan was extended all the way through summer. So kids that would have been eligible for the free and reduced lunch price at school will get an extra benefit allotment to cover, I believe it's 5 weeks of summer. And I think Congress landed on that 5 weeks because some school districts have an 8-week break and some have like a 4-week break. And so I think they just averaged it out. And then the last one is to provide opportunities for children to reach through alternative delivery models. So what we're asking for here is that there are some neighborhoods, especially in tribal communities, where we might be able to provide summer food through home delivered meals. And under the current regulations, we're not allowed to do that. But being able to deliver some meals directly to students' houses would be huge, especially in apartment complexes in Southern Nevada, where the population density is just really tight. CACFP is for the daycare centers. We don't do a lot with this. The biggest thing that we want to do with the CACFP is just to make sure, like I said before, that all of the reporting requirements and the reimbursement rates are the same as with summer food. The only really big change here is that we want to expand the provision that was put into the CARES Act and with the COVID American Rescue Plan, is to be able to provide homeless youth up to age 24 to continue to be able to receive free meals if they're in a homeless or some kind of like youth center. And that's a big deal. And then as far as the National School Lunch Program is concerned, we really want to start being able to get more schools onto the community eligibility provision, which would enable less paperwork for students, families to have to fill out, and would give more schools just universal free meals. I don't know that we're going to be able to get universal free meals. As you may know, the CARES Act provided funding for the last academic year that ended back in June, 3 meals. And so, and I don't think the American Rescue Plan did that. So we are trying to figure out the best way to get universal free meals to as many districts as we can. And the best way to do that is just to expand the community eligibility provision. And then as far as WIC is concerned, we really want to make sure that children are able to stay enrolled into the program until their 6th birthday. And then also we want to make sure that there is the WIC benefit increases that were written into the CARES Act and into the American Rescue Plan to make sure that those increases, just like with the 15% SNAP benefit, are made permanent so that families don't slide backwards as, you know, the rising cost of food and other inflation pressures put, you know, make it more difficult for them to meet their monthly budgets. So that is the very boring world of government relations right now. So is anybody actually still awake through all of this? Anyone? I could play like scenes of Ferris Bueller's Day Off if it would be better.
I'm awake. I think we're all still good.
Okay, so now that I have just basically blown through what is going to be 2.5 years worth of policy work in probably 20 minutes, does anybody have any questions about what it is that I just rambled on?
Boring.
And also, I would like to know what policy priorities are really important to you all, because I don't ever hear that. And it would be really helpful if I understood what you were working on so that I could figure out how to support the work that you're doing. Because I am here, that's part of my job, is to try and help you guys get your policy priorities done. And I'm terrible at trying to figure out, other than figuring out what bills you may be testifying on at the legislature, I am terrible at figuring out what you're working on. So it would be huge if I knew that.
I don't really have anything.
Is there anything you wish we were doing?
I don't know. Doing as much as we can do.
Jane, the folks at Reno First Methodist Church are trying to start doing an organizational thing, but it's probably going to take a couple years. But we certainly
Yeah. So how did your
appreciate
first meeting
being
go?
able to sub food banks. It's just going to probably take 2 years for this thing to go. Nothing's going to happen this legislative session. And as a, you know, kind of a volunteer person, I'm a little more wanting action rather than this long process of consensus and community building. But I guess we need both.
Yeah, I mean, let me just be one of the, you know, last people to tell you that there's a lot of policy priorities that the food bank did not pursue this legislative session, knowing the current state of the budget in Nevada, not knowing whether or not the Economic Forum was going to be able to have any surplus dollars left over when they meet to finalize the state budget in May. So my list for 2023 is already pretty long. One of the things that I would love to do is to have an interim study on TANF and just understand exactly what the health of the TANF program in Nevada is. TANF in Nevada hasn't been touched since it was created in 1996. The states have not raised and have not received any additional federal dollars for TANF since 1996. And so that program, you know, it is way overdue, number one, for reauthorization and also having a substantial funding adjustment at the federal level. But you know, no energy has ever been put into TANF at the state level, you know, beyond just making sure that we're doing what is federally prescribed so that we don't get fined by, you know, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services or the USDA. So yeah, my list for 2023 is already very long, and I totally commiserate with you on wanting action and not getting what you want. Is anybody doing any work with the city or the counties around any work that you're doing right now? Or has anybody gotten any CARES money from the city or the county for any of the work that you're doing right now? As you know, the state of Nevada is getting roughly $4 billion out of the American Rescue Plan. And the US Department of Treasury has not yet issued the guidance on what that's going to look like as far as like how the state is. So the state is going to get $2 billion, and then the counties, the cities, the tribes, the school districts are getting their own $2 billion spread across the state. So nobody really knows exactly what the re-granting opportunities for nonprofit is going to look like. That money doesn't have to be spent until the end of 2024. So there's going to be a lot of money flowing. A friend of mine said that Governor Sisolak was basically going to make sure that it rained money. So if you guys are applying for any of that money, or if you need help looking for some of that money, then let me know. But right now we don't have any clear guidance on how the legislature or the governor's finance office is going to sort of divide that money out to nonprofits. We're anxiously waiting for that. And then also I should tell you that, you know, we just got done with all of your guys' help. I don't know if you know this, but Nevada was one of the highest, what is the right word that I'm looking for? The response rate from Nevada on the US Census was one of the highest response rates in the country. And that was in large part due to our work between the food bank and our partner agencies of actually allowing census employees to be on site to be able to help people fill out the survey. This was a huge deal for us. So as you know, every 10 years, the districts that represent the legislature and the Congress have to be rewritten. Because of the pandemic, the US Census Bureau are likely not going to have reportable numbers to the state legislature until the end of April. So this very likely means that the legislature will have to go into a special session in late summer in order to redraw all of the maps for the state legislature and for the US Congress. So the good news about that is because it's going to have its own meeting, there's a real opportunity there to make sure that the districts actually represent the people that they're drawing out, you know, to make sure that minority and people of color are actually getting representation in the districts in which they live. And that is a huge thing when we're talking about, you know, diversity and inclusion. A lot of these districts are drawn across the country, not necessarily in Nevada, but a little bit in Nevada, to, you know, dilute the vote of certain voting populations. And so there is a bill in the legislature that would set up a nonpartisan redistricting commission that would be appointed by, well, in the current form, it would be appointed by the governor that would go out every 10 years and just bring back maps of what redistricting should look like without considering political parties as part of that. You know, the number of political parties that are in, you know, represented in each district. I don't know whether or not that is going to get final approval or not. We think it will. but anyway, going back to this whole thing is that there's going to be an opportunity for you to weigh in on what the congressional districts look like and what the state legislature districts look like this summer in a special session. And I'm going to encourage all of you to take a look at those maps and weigh in and make sure that the constituents that you serve and the clients you serve are actually being represented in the legislature. This is a really big thing, because once they're set for the next 10 years, whoever represents those districts is going to be driving the agenda. So I will send out information about that as soon as it's available, but you know, I'm really thinking that it's going to go into a special session. I don't see how the legislature would have enough time to take a look at the data and be able to draw the maps before the session ends on May 31st. And yeah, this is really stupid, but in Nevada, for those of you that don't know this, about 20 years ago, the voters decided that they wanted to limit Nevada legislative sessions to every other year for exactly 120 days. And that is not a lot of time to do policy work and then write a 2-year state budget. So there's going to be a lot happening, I think, this summer with special sessions. I'm also not convinced, because of the delays in the legislature, that the budget is going to be finalized completely on May 31st, but I don't know. We'll see. There could be a special budget session as well. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add, share? It's a good thing we're doing this virtually, so I can't get hit in the head with a tomato. I should have hired a piano player or a harpist. Wow, this was way easier than I thought. I was fully expecting you guys to come with a whole bunch of questions about what was going on in Carson City, so I didn't do more to prepare a more formal presentation, because what's happening in Carson City right now is just really complicated, and given that we're not there, and there's a lot of discussions happening, in hallways that we are not a part of. Has anybody here testified at all for a bill in this session?
No, but I plan on going for the school district.
What bill specifically? There's like 9.
It's hard. Well, I know a bill just got passed. I don't know if it got approved, but if it doesn't get approved, I'll probably go testify for it. He wants to do emergency unemployment for employees. And again, if it's been approved, that's awesome, who don't have 12-month contracts, such as myself. I work in a grant-funded position. We don't get paid over the summer. We don't get paid sick leave.
Yeah.
We don't get, things like that.
Yeah, so that bill was heard in the committee this week. I fully expect that bill will pass the committee. I mean, we'll go to the floor. I
mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, so I do think, okay, so the bill that you're specifically referring to, I think that bill is going to get passed. It's probably going to end up being heavily amended, but it's going to pass.
Yeah. And like you said, there's so much going on right now with the education system. And I think it ties into what I do with mental health, and even the food pantry, I operate that. It's all a vicious circle that we all kind of work together in. So.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, but I think that, so your bill will definitely pass. I just don't know how heavily amended it's going to be. There was a lot of sort of like back and forth between the school districts and the people that you represent, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that hearing was this week, because I remember part of it, but anyway, it's probably going to go to markup next week. It has to pass out of the committee. All of the bills have to pass committee by April 9th. And it doesn't look like leadership is going to extend that, even though, this is the stupid part, even though they are still allowing bill introductions every single day this week, the drop dead date to get a bill out of committee before it dies is April 9th. So they're going to have more bills to hear than they actually have time for the hearing. And I don't see how they cannot extend the deadline, but we'll have to wait and see. That deadline on April 9th is going to murder a lot of bills. Anything else? I don't know, what time are we supposed to be done now? I am so confused, and probably the world's worst breakout session host ever.
Well,
But-
she sent us a little note. If you needed more time, we could take a few more minutes, but I think if we are ready to go back to the main room, we can just let her know somehow.
Okay.
So do
Yeah,
you-
I mean, unless, oh, there's a thing in the chat.
as a thank you.
Well, that was nice. I'm happy that, you know, at least somebody who doesn't do this kind of thing for a living would have a marginal interest in what I do, because it is really important. And yes, it is uber boring. No, I mean, I'm totally fine. If we are done here, I'm happy to release you from what feels like a death sentence and go back into the main room.
So I think if we're done, if nobody else has any other questions, we can just leave room. And it looks like from that note that it'll bring us back to the main room. So if you just everybody just go to the bottom of your screen where it says leave room, and hopefully that will just take us back to the main room.
And if you do have questions, just reach out and ask me. I'm totally available.
Shannon says, thank you.
You're welcome, Shannon.
All right. I think we're good. If nobody has anything, we can all just leave room, and then I think that will take us back to the main one.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Shane.